Londra'dan herkese merhaba. Avrupa İmar ve Kalkınma Bankası EBRD'nin genel merkezindeyiz Londra'da. Avrupa İmar ve Kalkınma Bankası İran Savaşı'nın da yarattığı enerji şokunun etkisiyle faaliyet gösterdiği bölgede büyüme tahminlerini aşağı yönlü revize etti. Biz hem İran Savaşı'nın yansımalarını hem de önümüzdeki döneme dair beklentileri konuşacağız. EBRD'nin Başkan Yardımcısı Matteo Patrone ile birlikteyiz. Mr. Patrone, thanks for joining our program.
Thanks for having me.
5 years into 2026 and we have lived through a lot. Iran war, energy shock, rising inflation, slowing growth and everything. What is your headline? What is the balance sheet of this 5 months and what surprised you most in these 5 months?
I think the headline is the increased uncertainty from a geopolitical standpoint, from a macroeconomic standpoint, and of course we have the disruption of artificial intelligence that is to the fore, and we need to come up with a plan to leverage on that and not being a victim of that wave of innovation that comes with artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And what has somehow surprised me so far is the resilience of the economies we work in. Yes, there has been a revision downwards, as you mentioned, of our predictions and our forecast for 2026 and 2027. But overall, what we see from our clients is that there is a lot of resilience in the economies we operate in.
So you have revised the growth forecasts to 3.1% in the EBRD region. Which countries are included and why did you make this revision? How serious is the slowdown?
So the revision is basically 0.5% down compared to our forecast in February 2026 and is almost entirely driven by the crisis in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. So, and the externalities derived by that, which means energy disruptions in the value chains of energy-intense industries, and what comes with it. And so tourism, remittances, etc., in particular in the region close to the epicenter of the crisis. The region that is covered by this 3.1% is the entire region of operation of the EBRD, so is Eastern Europe, Turkey, the Caucasus, Central Asia, the Southern Mediterranean Basin, and Sub-Saharan Africa.
So what is the latest figure for growth forecast about Turkey, specifically Turkey?
For Turkey, it is now 3.5% in 2026, which increases to 4% in 2027. Mm-hmm. So again, there is a revision downwards by 0.5%, roughly, but the trend still is quite a resilient one, mm-hmm. which I think points to the stability of the macroeconomic system in the country and the orthodoxy of the measures taken in the past few years have put the country in a much more stable foothold in terms of ability to respond to these externalities.
So these revisions are on the ground that the war will end in the short run, right? If it is not the case and if it's a prolonged war, so what will happen? What's your worst case scenario?
Well, there is no worst case scenario at the moment being because we are really watching on a day-by-day basis what is happening on the ground. But clearly, if this continues beyond next few months, we will see probably a deterioration of asset quality. We will see further disruption in the energy systems. We will see further disruptions in the industrial value chains, being, again, energy-intensive industries, but also agriculture. We will see further disruptions in services industries, indirect disruption in those economies which are very reliant on remittances, in particular remittances from the Gulf countries, and so on and so forth.
So what do you exactly see in the region right now? How serious is the situation? Because the Strait of Hormuz is almost closed. So you have also announced a package, a response package. What is that for exactly?
So indeed, we have put in place what we call a Middle Eastern crisis response package, which intends to focus on the countries which are immediately affected by the crisis, being Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, West Bank, and but also those who are by proximity, by geographical proximity, also affected by the crisis. And that includes Turkey, but also Egypt and the countries in the Caucasus.
It's 5 billion euros.
What we intend to do in these countries is to invest 5 billion euros this year, which is partly the continuation of the investment plan that we have already. And so we are relentless in pursuing those investment opportunities, being driven by capital expenditures, but also by need for working capital for expansion. But at the same time, we are revising the pipeline in order to support our clients whenever there is a need for emergency liquidity in all possible sectors.
In its latest report, EBRD says that competitiveness is under pressure. So how has your all investment projects in different sectors affected? Are there delays, or are you postponing some of them, or all are on schedule?
No, it's quite the opposite, actually. But first of all, we are a counter-cyclical investor. So when the going gets tough, we tend to invest more. And I think what we have done in Ukraine is a very good example of that. We have scaled up our investment substantially after the beginning of the full-scale invasion. More in general, in all our regions of operations, actually, last year we invested 17 billion euros, and the pipeline for this year points to a higher figure. And
last year it was 17, right?
Yeah,
17 billion.
Yeah. And so we are not stopping. We intend to support our clients that have the courage to keep investing, but also we want to support our clients that do not have the courage of investing, are not in the position for investing, but they need liquidity to keep their operations.
So specifically in Turkey, what kind of a figure can you give in terms of all the projects that you're planning?
So I can give you the figure for last year. That was 2.7 billion euros in 54 projects, about 90% in the private sector, 2/3 of those addressing energy security and energy transition and decarbonization. This year the pipeline is very strong as well. And we will see, because we are a demand-driven bank, so we will see how it's going to go going forward. But both what we have signed and the pipeline are pointing in a pretty positive direction.
So despite the war, do you think there's demand right now?
Absolutely.
So what about green transition?
Yeah.
Because some say that the priorities are changing because of this war. Do you think green transition is losing momentum?
Well, to me, green transition means energy security. And if there is anything that this war and the war on Ukraine has shown, that energy security is predominantly important in planning investments and positioning of industries across various sectors. So for us, it's absolutely actual. And that's the reason why we are very happy to coordinate together with the World Bank and others on our TDIP platform in the Turkey Industrial Decarbonization Platform initiative, which plans to invest 5 billion euros of investments in decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries like steel, aluminium, fertilizers, cement, etc.
What about COP31?
That's part of it, actually. And this is a very important event in Antalya that we are very glad to help defining together with a number of ministries and international partners. And we are very much looking forward to the discussion there.
So do you think the war and geopolitical risks will put a shadow to COP31?
Well, somehow, yes, but can be also a catalyzer, a trigger to get stuff done in these countries.
So your annual meetings will be in Riga this year. Last year it was in London in this building. What do you expect? What will be the key takeaways? Who are attending? So
we have about 2,000 people attending, and these are international partners of the BRD, both from the public sector and the private sector. And I think the themes that we have just discussed are going to be predominant there. So is very prominent is the geopolitical fragmentation and instability, and the macroeconomic pressures that come with it, and obviously the innovation that is actually going to play a significant role in the development of the economies where we operate.
Mm-hmm. So after this annual meetings, what will be your agenda? What will be on your desk when you return back to here?
I'm not coming back, actually, and so I'm leaving tomorrow for Riga, and then from Riga I'm going directly to Cairo, which is a very important market for us. Turkey is our first market, but then Egypt is between the second and the third, together with Ukraine, and there is clearly one of the markets where we need to make sure that we are supporting our clients coping with the current crisis in the Middle East. The Egyptian economy is one of the most affected.
Mm-hmm. So for 2026, for the rest of this year and for 2026, what do you expect to see in terms of growth, inflation? What will you watch closely from now on?
So I think the inflationary pressures are very important, because with a decrease of growth prospects, as you mentioned, 3.1% for 2026, and at the same time inflationary pressures in a number of countries, and Turkey being the most important, being a central banker these days is not an easy job.
Yeah.
Because you need to come to some sort of trade-off between the two issues, and yes, and so those are the two points for contention and particularly focus in the next few months.
Difficult trade-off for central banks.
Absolutely.
Growth and inflation. Mr. Matteo Patrone, thanks for joining our program.
Thank you very much.
Evet, EBRD Başkan Yardımcısı Matteo Patrone ile buluştuk. Londra'da EBRD'nin genel merkezinde. Sözü İstanbul'a bırakalım.